Jordan. I can't remember if we have ever done the video lessons before. Usually what I do is because they need to be short, so I'm just going to go over a little of this with you if we haven't. Usually they need to be short because I can only upload short videos, so I usually make a couple of them, and so this should be labeled number 1, and then you're just going to keep following through. I usually make either 3 or 4. I may make 4 for you today, but kind of just depends on where we are in our books and what kind of things we need to get accomplished. Today I'd like to start out by getting ready for a new concept that I know is coming up in your book, and it's something that is a little bit different, so I wanted to introduce it to you, and I thought that the video would be a really good way for us to get that started. So I'm going to use my dry erase board. We have been doing songs that have been normally in the time signature. If you remember, that's the thing that we find at the very beginning of a song that tells us how many beats are in each measure, and then the top number tells us how many beats are in each measure. Like if this is 4/4, so the 4 on the top tells us that there are 4 beats in a measure, and then the 4 on the bottom tells us that they're going to be 4. A quarter note is going to get a beat. So I don't think we've done this for a while. I'll just do a little visual here. And this is what we call a time signature. So this is a word we would have learned along the way, but I find that this is a word that a lot of times kids don't seem to remember, and I probably don't review it enough, but you'll find this is what you'll find at the beginning of a song. And again, the top number means how many beats are going to be in each measure. The bottom number means what kind of note is going to get the beat. So for the most part, you and I have been doing ones in 3/4 or 4/4 or 3/4, which means we'd have 3 beats in the measure. The quarter note would be getting 1 beat. We're getting ready to move into learning some new what we call triple rhythms. That's a triple rhythm. This would be a duple rhythm. Anything divided by 2 is a duple, anything divided by 3 is a triple. But we're going to start learning how to read what is called 3/8 time signature. Let me erase this, which means that we'll have 3 beats in each measure, just like we did with the 3/4 time signature. But instead of a quarter note getting 1 beat, the 8 stands for an 8th note. So if I was going to write 3/8, it could also look like this. And when we're first starting out in your book, we may go ahead and just do this because I think the visual helps a little bit to understand that 3 beats in the measure, and then the 8th note is going to get the beat or get 1 beat. Now this gets a little tricky because we're used to thinking of 8th notes in the value of being a half of a beat, because that's how we've divided up our quarter notes in a duple rhythm. But in triple, when we have 3/8, each 8th note is going to get 1 beat. So a measure in 3/8 time, I'll just leave it like that, could look like, see we have a bar line there, just plain old 3/8 notes like that. That could be one whole measure in 3/8 time, and then the beats would be 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'll write that underneath there. Now where it gets even trickier is you're used to seeing a quarter note equaling 1 beat, but because the 8th note is getting 1 beat, it's going to take 2 8th notes to equal a quarter note, but that's going to mean that a quarter note will get 2 beats in 3/8 time instead of 1 beat. You can see why it's a little bit confusing to start off with. We're going to start off kind of slow. We've got a couple of songs that we're going to be doing, not on this video, because I'd like to be with you when we first start 3/8, the counting and all, but I thought if I wrote out some patterns for you so you could kind of get used to thinking a little bit differently before we dig into the new songs, this could be helpful. So in 3/8, a quarter note is going to get 2 beats, and in 3/8, a dotted quarter note is going to equal 3 beats. Again, because the 8th note is getting a beat. So what we're used to thinking of a half of a beat now is going to be a whole beat, and then we have to kind of do the math accordingly. Now fortunately, you're going to start off in 3/8, and then we're going to move into something called 6/8, which we have a lot more songs in 6/8 that we'll be working on. Just there's a lot more written in 6/8 for us at this point. But we're going to start with 3/8 because mathematically it's easier to figure out. So when we're doing this, if we're talking about rhythm-wise, I use a different language. You're used to hearing me, if I'm counting in a duple rhythm, I'll say do's and do days. But these are going to say do, da, di. So if I was going to count out one measure in 3/8, it would look like this. And it would say do, da, di, do, da, di, do, da, di, do, da, di. If I'm going to do this next rhythm with the quarter note, we'd say do da, do da, do da, do da, like that. And then the other one I showed you would just be do, do, and you'd have 3 pulses on that dotted quarter note. So start thinking about some of those ideas. If you want to look at the next unit of your book just to see what it looks like, seeing 3/8, there will be an introduction of 3/8 on the left-hand side, and then our first song in 3/8 will be on the right-hand side. You could also look at your theory book. You don't have to. These are all just things, depending on how much time you have between now and your first lesson. At least you got the concept right now. And then when we get together again, we're going to start working a little bit on reading 3/8 time, work on counting it and that kind of thing. So if you find that you have questions on that, jot them down on your lesson book where that unit starts 3/8 time if there's something you didn't understand about what I explained, and that will give us a good jumping off point from where I see you next.